BBC News, I'm John Shea. The Taliban's lightning week-long offensive across Afghanistan has culminated in their seizure of the capital, Kabul, 20 years after they last held power. They took the city after President Ashraf Ghani fled to Uzbekistan, saying the militants had won by force and were now responsible for protecting the honour, wealth and self-esteem of the Afghan people. The Taliban have urged calm, but Kabul is in chaos, with residents thronging the streets in their efforts to flee. Suhail Shaheen is a spokesman for the militants.
We want to avoid bloodshed and to destruction of properties of the people, and to not give chance to plunderers, looters who are waiting for such movements to loot or plunder the properties of the people, or to harm, violate the honour of the people.
The BBC's Malik Mudassar arrived in Kabul a few hours ago. He gave us a brief update on what he'd seen.
They are patrolling in the streets and they are just keeping those government official vehicles and army and police vehicles they have captured from the forces here in Afghanistan. They are just marking those places to where to put checkpoints and where to get the advantage point from.
As the Taliban move into Kabul, Western countries are moving out, commandeering the airport to evacuate embassy staff and others who are desperate to leave. The Pentagon is sending a further 1,000 American troops to assist with the US evacuation effort. Many are already working to secure the airport, where commercial flights have been suspended. David Willis has more details.
The latest edition is made up of members of the 82nd Army Airborne Division. They'll join the roughly 3,000 US troops that have already arrived in Afghanistan in an effort to help secure the airport in Kabul, to which embassy officials and Afghan support staff have now been transferred. President Biden was briefed on the situation by members of his national security team at the presidential retreat, Camp David. He has yet to comment on the latest developments in Afghanistan.
British troops on the ground are supporting the evacuation of British and Afghan civilians. France and Germany are sending military planes to get their citizens out. Russia and Turkey say they're keeping their embassies open after security assurances from the Taliban. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he wants to make sure that other like-minded nations do not prematurely recognise the Taliban. He said he wanted to be certain that Afghanistan didn't lapse back into becoming a breeding ground for terrorism. The former Afghan President Hamid Karzai has said a coordination council has been formed to manage the transfer of power. It's made up of Mr Karzai himself, Abdullah Abdullah, a senior politician who's been leading peace negotiations with the Taliban, and Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, a former warlord turned politician. World News from the BBC. Haiti's Civil Protection Service says more than 700 people are now known to have died in Saturday's powerful earthquake. Many more have been injured. The quake, with a magnitude of 7.2, struck the southwest of the country and was followed by a major overnight aftershock. Several cities have been hit, with heavy damage reported in Jérémie and Léké. A number of nations have promised help, including the US. Thousands of people in Israel have been evacuated from their homes as wildfires broke out in forested hills to the west of Jerusalem. Planes and helicopters have supported firefighters battling the blaze. Sebastian Usher reports.
A fire service spokesman said the flames were advancing quickly amid strong winds threatening several villages in the area. Houses were reported ablaze in one village. A psychiatric hospital also had to be evacuated of all its staff and patients. 2 highways were closed in the vicinity. As in Greece and Turkey, the exceptionally hot and dry weather contributed to the ferocity of the fire, although local officials say much of the blaze has now been brought under control.
The United Nations Refugee Agency says at least 10,000 people have fled to Niger from northern Cameroon since an outbreak of violence on Tuesday. The UNHCR said 85% of the refugees were women and children, all desperately in need of food, shelter and health services. The authorities in Cameroon say at least 12 people were killed and nearly 50 wounded during clashes between cattle herders and fishermen in the district of Logon-Birni. The 20-time tennis Grand Slam champion Roger Federer says he'll be out of the game for many months as he prepares to have further knee surgery. In a video post on Instagram, Federer said he hoped the surgery would give him a glimmer of hope to return to action. The 40-year-old Swiss had 2 knee operations last year. And that's the latest BBC World News.